That's quorum.
All right, welcome to the annual meeting. Called to order at what, 3:34, 35. This is the first time we've done it this way, so bear with us as we go through it. Just to recap a couple things, if you've got questions or comments, you can use the chat session to ask Neil. He's the moderator here, and or you can click the raise your hand. Neil, if you want to describe how they can do that for those who are new to Zoom.
Sure. We'll do it one more time. The participants tab is at the bottom. And so if you click on your participants, you'll actually see yourself at the top. And then when you click more, you can actually, or you can click any of those options, yes, no, go faster. And then under the more, there's a thumbs up or a clap. And then any of that stuff, if you do any of that, unless Steve asks you to clap for him or something like that during the discussion, then I'll go ahead and go to you and have you ask your question.
All right. So as we get into the meeting, but actually before we get into the meeting, many of you know this, some of you might not, but it bears worth repeating. You know, how do we do what we do, why we do it? Everything we do as a board and as a group is really filtered through what we've referred to as our three guiding principles. The first is fiscal responsibility. We're running a small business, a nonprofit. We need to make financially sound decisions, and we need to make sure that we stay within the parameters for both legal as well as IRS, as well as keep everything on track within USCA curling. So we have that responsibility to run a business, and that's always going to be first and foremost because we want to be around for the long haul. Unfortunately, we've seen some of our sister clubs, that then financially struggle, and we don't want to be in that position. The second thing is member fulfillment. We want to try to enhance and improve the value equation for all of our members with what we do and how we do it. So that is a strong driver for what we do, how we do it, why we do it. But that member fulfillment used to be farther down on the list, and as we've become more mature, we've been able to elevate that up to be the second priority. And then third priority being new members. New members in any, forget curling, in any business, sales and growth are drivers of a business, and that's no different for our business. We lose between 70-ish, 80-ish people a year for varying and odd reasons, most of them being people move away, they had a change in lifestyle, they're expecting a whole range of things, but 70 to 80 members. So we constantly need to be refilling those slots and growing. We're looking to grow a little to make sure that we stay financially sound. Back to the first priority, we want to make sure that we are fiscally responsible. So that being said, the next thing is really, we're all volunteers, and a huge thank you to everyone who helps support Charlotte Curling. A lot of people to thank here, and I know I'm going to miss some, but the blanket statement is everybody who volunteered. Now, in most organizations, volunteer participation rate will be the 80-20 rule. 80% of the people don't, 20% of the people do. We're really, in Charlotte Curling, we've proven that it's the reverse, that 80% of the people or more are participating in some form or fashion to support Charlotte Curling in the way that they can. And that is huge. We can't underestimate the value there. And it really is a wide range of responsibilities. I'll start out with the ice crew led by Frank. And when you look at, the fundamental value equation there, having good quality ice is extremely important, and they do a great job. The Bonspiel team led by Carol. We've got the Bonspiel coordinators and all of the people that volunteer for the Bonspiels. Those are a full 25-30% of our annual revenue comes from Bonspiels. Every league commissioner, everybody who curls in a league, there's a league commissioner that is mostly behind the scenes doing a lot of work to keep that league organized and keep it going forward. The juniors, Little Rockers, the shall we say the future of our curlers, and our curling, Charlotte Curling Association is that new curl coming in, the juniors, the Little Rockers, and those league commissioners who help make that happen. Board members, both current, those who have served on the board previously, as well as those coming in. The bioretention pond crew, which has saved us thousands of dollars, led by Brett Kubrick. We've had Corona Spiel, and if you haven't participated, I would suggest that you do. Basically, it's like tabletop curling where we're all rooting, cheering, commenting via Zoom. And there's pins that we've got coming in, and there's a group of people that have been working to support that. So a big thank you to those people, as well as the people who are involved in the social distancing spiel using the playcurling.com game, where we've had two social distancing spiels that have gone on. And once again, if you haven't done that before, I would suggest that you do. And we're using email and Meetup to try to help get that information out, as well as the Facebook page, Charlotte Curling Mafia. But once again, everybody who participated and helped support that. Annette Gould, assisted by Brady. I like to say that Annette was nominated as the hardest working non-curler volunteer, but and in all joking aside, Brady, with everything you've done for the group, Eric Cable and his variety of things that he's supported the club with, DJ Cruiser took over the pro shop and has really brought it to a new level, and we appreciate that. John Frobe, in addition to being the on the board, has operating as the bar manager and keeping us with all the craft beers and the variety that he does. Dave Allison with corporate events, corporate events being another cornerstone of the revenue for Charlotte Curling. And that would not have happened without the daytime superstars, which are, all of the people who have put themselves into the club during the day to help support the daytime corporate events. It's a smaller group. We tend to lean on them a lot. I'll say that next year, our intent is to try to not have as big a drain, volunteer drain with corporate events. We're actually going to try to ratchet down what we would expect from them and from corporate events in general. Kurt Novotny, least but not last, Kurt, it does a lot of things behind the scenes that people don't realize. It's just all of a sudden magically got done. Oh, Kurt did that. So, and to the countless other people that I didn't directly or indirectly mention here, doesn't mean you're not appreciated, but it is all of this team pulling together that allows us to have that beautiful facility and to be able to do what we do. So to everyone, thank you, and thank you, and thank you. So part of the annual meeting is to give you the financials, give you the update on where we're at and how we wound up. And over the course of the year, we'd let you know about the accounting difficulties that we ran into with our books not quite being where we needed them to be, and that morphed into a project where we wound up having to revamp our entire bookkeeping system. But if you think about it this way, we're a $350,000 a year business on average. Sometimes it goes up a little more than that, but that is a medium-sized small business. And it's complicated because it's all volunteer. It's not like we have paid professionals in. We have professionals in who are volunteering, maybe not in their realm of what they're a professional in. So having it be volunteer based, having it be a nonprofit, having it be a complicated business, hindsight's 2020, and in looking back, it's not surprising that our books really became jumbled and really that we had to do this complete redo of the books. The good news is that we have gotten through it. Our books right now they've never been organized this well. And, we spent about $5,000 to get there. We actually wound up rebuilding from scratch and archiving our current set of books and rebuilding and starting with a new set of books because it was just a more direct and cleaner way to go. But it took a lot of effort on a few different people's parts, but we're there. We've hired a bookkeeper. We are hiring a bookkeeper and going to keep that bookkeeper in place so that we can maintain the consistency, maintain the standardization, keep the legacy knowledge that we've got with how we run our books and how to do the accounting. And that's really important because right now the treasurer position can theoretically turn over every year or more often based on the makeup of the board and what's going on. And what we don't want to do is get back into the position that we were, where we lost the legacy knowledge, that we lost all of the best practices just through these transitions that happen. So the bookkeeper is going to be a major piece of doing that. Now, I'm going to say we're going to come back to the concept of the keeping the legacy and smoothing out the transition, because we're going to talk about that in a different light, but the same need in a couple minutes. So we've gone through that whole process, focused on standardization and best practices. Hopefully, we'll never have to talk about that again in an annual meeting. We had some major donations come in the middle of the year that we were able to get some key things accomplished. There were 3 very generous members that donated. We built the storage in the storage room. We've got a little more work to do there, but if you haven't seen how much storage we have above the mechanical room now, it's substantial and actually has safe stairs you can walk up. So we also, as everybody knows now, we paved the parking lot. That was where the bulk of the monies went, was to getting that lot paved. There are some other things that are going to happen, so stay tuned, but we don't have the specifics on that. But we do have another large donation that came in. And it was actually just finalized this past week. I think everybody knows that Carol White and Dave Thompson had recently passed away, and they had always been very generous, very supportive of Charlotte Curling. They were supporters beyond belief, and that continued with their legacy because they bequeathed almost $170,000 to Charlotte Curling, which is huge. It could not have come at a better time, given all of the uncertainty with the virus and COVID-19 and everything. And we are extremely grateful to have been blessed in this way, and have been blessed by Carol and Dave. So I know they can hear us somewhere. Thank you very much. So what are we going to do with that money? Well, the board's meeting in May, and then going to be discussing it moving forward. I think it's safe to say the vast majority of that money is going to be our rainy day fund for what happens if you have something catastrophic, a virus, a chiller go down, who knows? But we need to have the resources to be able to handle that type of thing. And thankfully, through their generosity, we will have that with a rainy day fund. There's the possible of some capital improvements, but that all of this still is yet to be determined. Like I said, we just got confirmation that the monies hit the bank, 169,900. It was almost $170,000 that is now in our reserves. So once again, to Carol and Dave, unbelievably generous. Financial highlights. We're talking top level here, and this is a projection of from now through the end of August, which is our fiscal year. So through August 30th of 2020, I'll say that timing worked in our favor. The majority of events and revenue we were going to raise through corporate events and bond spiels, and we concluded most of those, not all, but most, and that really worked in our favor. The detail of this, the P&L and the balance sheet, are going to be out on the web. So if you want to get more information, by all means, there's 100% transparency here. We've run the reports out of our brand new QuickBooks. So any of that detail is going to be out on the web, as well as links to this annual meeting that's being recorded. This is also going out on YouTube and will be one of the videos on YouTube. So, we want to make sure that anybody has the opportunity to understand more about what we do and how we do it. So the projections through August 30th, sales of 315,000 or so. We don't anticipate much more volume. Any memberships that come in, including renewals, will go into next budget year, not this fiscal year. So cost of goods is another item that is on a P&L, but we don't have a lot of hard costs. So that really is only 31,000. Expenses tend to be heavy. Our expenses, we're projecting out with electric and everything through the end of our fiscal year to be at 233, giving us down to the net line about $50,000. Now, there's still some monies that would come out of the 50,000, mainly payments against the capital that is not interest, but the capital on the building that we pay. So when we make a payment, the interest is in the P&L, but the capital expenditure is not. So, but bottom line is that we really were fortunate that the timing of the COVID-19 and how it hit, we were able to capture most of our revenue that would have been. Bottom line, we're financially healthy. We're doing good. This is not everything's going to be fine. This is saying we're going to close the year out fine. And with the reserves we've got now, I think moving into next year, we're going to be in a strong position. The board. This was the current board that is transitioning now, with John Frobe, Rhonda, and myself rolling off. And I would be remiss not to take this moment to thank both John and Rhonda for having served on the board. Both of them have been really, truly instrumental in us as we've transitioned through to being a mature business. And we truly thank you from the bottom of our hearts that you gave so much. And even though John will be rolling off the board, I believe bar manager is something that he is going to be continuing to function in. And I know Rhonda will continue to function in things. So it's not that they're gone. It's just that they don't have to attend those board meetings anymore. So the makeup of our board is 9 board members. Everybody's elected to a 3-year term. And each year, the way that our bylaws are written, each year, every officer is elected into their position by the board. So a couple different things. One is that in general, this format has been effective. We've been able to get to where we are, right? But it's not necessarily the best thing for us long-term. The best example I can give you is that this is the format we developed when we were an arena club. And now, mind you, we were looking towards dedicated ice, and we kind of, had that in our vision, but there's no way we would really know what everything needed to be back then for what we need to now and moving forward. One of the things that the board has relied heavily on is the legacy board members and board members that would run for 2 and 3 terms. And we've got multiple people that have done that. And so one of the things, if you can sense what I'm leading up to, is we're going to wanting to be shift some of the way that the board is organized. And I'll go into that in a minute, but it's worked effectively for us now. But we think that there's going to be a better way that we can function a little better by making some fine tuning and minor changes. Because the biggest problem is that this format did not allow for that legacy knowledge to be passed on, and specifically to the president's position, because, you know, while I rolled off, I put my name in the hat for the new elections because we really didn't have a solid plan to transition the president's position and the leadership. And so that's part of what we want to take into account when we're talking about potential changes. This is the new board. This is the board moving forward. And you see, you've got Casey, Neil, and Amanda will roll off in 21. And welcome and thank you to JT Jablonski and Kyle Markham for joining the board, putting your name in the hat and joining the board, stepping up and stepping in. I show the officers here only because those are the officers that are currently in place until our next board meeting, which is May 12th. At that board meeting, according to our bylaws, we then the board elects all of the officers of the club. And that can happen on an annual basis or more frequently. And that's part of where what I'm kind of leading to with what we want to look at is on changes on the board. Because if you were to look at it and say, if I had not run again, it literally, from a responsibility perspective, would have been a mic drop. It would have been just very abrupt and would have been very difficult for any one of these people to just step in and pick up the torch and run with it, because there's so many things that are nuances that over my tenure I have developed and we've handled and we've got a plan for, but how do you pass that on? That legacy knowledge I keep referring to. So, I've been in the president position for 6 years. I love it. I've enjoyed doing it. And I'd like to transition off. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking and, this year, nothing changes, because nothing can change here unless our bylaws change. So we will go through the process, elect the officers, but we definitely need a better way to transition. And Neil Pfeiffer is going to be leading a team that develops that plan in concert with the board, but just kind of fleshing out what we're thinking and separating out the president's position from being elected separately from the rest of the board. But it's also one of those things that there's no solid plan put in place. And so the offer is open to anybody. If you want to be a part of that, please let us know. Send Neil an email, give him a phone call, let him know you want to be interested in that. We don't have a preconceived notion of what it should look like. We just know that we need a better transition plan. So I know this is how all of us are feeling right about now. You stand and you look outside and you're like, oh, there's not that many people walking on the sidewalk. Maybe I should go for a walk now. Or, and it's draining and it's tiring. And as it sounds weird, staying home can be draining you. It can be, but it really is, because you're now out of what is norm, right? And then, so I told you at the beginning, we're going to go through where we are, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. So then the question is, what does the future look like? I'd like to be able to tell you point blank and just blanket statement of, oh yeah, well, we got all the answers, but I'd be lying to you. I think that we all want to know the same types of things when it comes to curling. When can we curl? Who are we going to be curling with? Yeah, and then there's the whole broom stacking thing, because curling, an inherent part of curling is the culture, the camaraderie, the broom stacking, the fellowship, and all of us have been jonesing for that, and we're like, okay, when can we get back to this, because we miss it so much. And what I can tell you is there's some things we know, some things we don't. The things we know, first thing is we have the resources. Once again, in large part due to the generosity of Carol White and Dave Thompson, we have the ability to weather the storm. And that's important because, every business has its troubles and troubles, but at least in the short term and midterm, we don't have to worry about how are we going to keep the lights on. We can weather this storm. Second thing is that I personally have no doubt we have the will. We're all longing to get back to the community of curling that we so love and cherish. And, I don't know how, but I know we have the will, the drive, and the desire to make it happen. And we will. We'll find the way. The culture of curling is strong, and I don't have a doubt as to the fact that we will get back to curling and we will enjoy the sport that we've so enjoyed for years. But here's what we don't know yet. And it's going to be no surprises here. We don't know how or even if we can hold events. It's very likely that some, more, maybe all of events for next year are either not going to be held or change in small or dramatic ways. We don't know. And like you've been getting daily coronavirus briefings, then information is coming out all the time, and there's some hopeful things on the horizon, but we really don't know. That is something that the board is going to be trying to deal with starting in May, and that we are going to try to at least answer some of the short-term and midterm questions of what are we doing about hot shots? What are we doing about grits? How are we going to handle the Southern States mixed doubles? I mean, how are we going to handle these things? I don't know. I can tell you that we're aware of it. We're going to work through it. We'll figure it out. Just don't have that answer. One of the main priorities is going to be, how do we hold leagues and still be safe? We don't want to hold leagues at all cost. We do want to hold leagues and do it safely, but hold leagues. I mean, I don't think there's anyone here who would say, yeah, you know what, let's forget curling this year. No, but we don't know how. And, what I'll tell you is that we don't know what restrictions, best practices, best ideas, we don't know that, but I can tell you there's a lot of people that are working on that. I know the USCA, the World Curling Federation, and a wide range of people are working on how do we get back to our sport, but do it in a way that we don't cause undue risk or harm. That I know is being worked on as we speak, and as more information becomes available. Whether we, how we'll do broom stacking, how we will integrate and such, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Just don't have that answer yet. So that's kind of where we're at. Neil, what do we got for questions, comments, concerns? Do I need to unmute you, Neil?
Kim just made a comment in the chat that you could, that one potential thing is to order the brooms up curling face mask. So
Yeah,
anyway, yeah, and we're going to include masks as an option too.
yeah, yeah, and really, you know, when we talk about what are we going to do, everybody also needs to do what they feel is going to be safe for them. You know, if we're not saying masks are mandatory, but someone feels safer with a mask on, so be it. You know, we don't want to take undue risk. We don't want to expose people. We want to do this as safely as we can. But it's also got to be, everybody's got to feel safe.
There was two questions. There's a lot of more stuff coming now because after everybody's
Sure.
the status of the front part of the property, we did talk about that the last board meeting. So
Yes.
Peter wanted to know that.
Right now, the donation that was made in the middle of the year was the people that made the donation asked for a commitment from the board, and it's not a legal commitment. But one of the things that the thing that was asked for this was that the front property be not sold off unless there was a dire business need to do so. And the board did agree to that. So philosophically speaking, the front property is going to remain part of Charlotte Curling unless there was something catastrophic we couldn't handle. But candidly speaking, that property it's valuable property, but commercial property, when we had it on the market for a year and a half, we had a lot of interest, but we never really had a serious buyer. So I don't think that it takes away anything, but right now there's no intent to sell that property off.
And you can also tell, I mean, you know more about this than I do, Steve, but about all the offers we got. There was only like two real offers and what businesses had asked to use it. So that kind of clears everything up, I think, for everyone.
Yeah, we got, so you know, we got a couple of people that were kind of fishing with lowball offer type of, and they didn't even make an offer. They made an insinuation that if this, and it was a very low price offer, and the businesses that were the most interested are not necessarily the ones we want to have located in front of us. You know, it's when we talk about controlling our image, the moment we sell that property off, we lose control over what is on the property.
We had a couple other comments and one other question. Omar had just typed into the chat that Kevin Martin had already suggested only one sweeper. I think a few of us had heard that before. And then Dave had a question about equipment and curl gating at the club, because I think
good point. Curl gating is probably going to be something that we will be handling, shall we say, on an as need basis or as you can provide basis. For those of you who are new, curl gating is something we would do over the summer. We would have 2 to 3 work days where everybody would show up on a Saturday, and we would all work through the morning or afternoon, and then have a potluck dinner. I don't think we're going to be able to do that. The board has talked about that, to have more of a sign up genius that we'll put out with, here are the things that we know we need to get done, and let people sign up for those, and then tell us when they're going to be doing it. And depending on social distancing recommendations and requirements as to, you know, we will then be able to look at who's at the club doing anything at any certain point in time, and that way not have any inadvertent violations of social distancing. So that's likely the way that curl gating and the associated tasks are going to be taken care of. What else we got?
Then there was an ask about an update on the solar, if there was any solar update.
You know, we looked at that extensively, and the problem is that many times solar is cost effective because of the of tax breaks and rebates back, and it has a lot to do with taxes. And unfortunately, since we don't pay taxes, being a nonprofit, a lot of that advantage is taken away. And then there are rebates for nonprofits, but when we did the financial analysis, even if we loaded up the entire roof with solar panels, it was going to be cost prohibitive on a return basis, just because of the lack of first off the cost and the lack of being able to offset that cost. So at this point, we don't see that we're going to be able to do solar. Now, if that changes, we'd be the first ones to be all in on it, because our energy usage is, besides our mortgages, our single biggest cost. If we were able to reduce that, that would be awesome. So we would love to go solar. It's just that it's several $100,000 to put solar on the building, and we couldn't generate enough of a return on investment.
Yeah, and the second part of the curl gating was, how do we pick up our equipment?
On an individual basis, we have reactivated alarm codes and entry codes. So if you've got an entry code and an alarm code, you can, at your convenience, get your equipment. And I would encourage you to, not only from a you want to clean it and keep control of it, but that way, as we go to open back up, it's one of the logistics things that we don't have to worry about.
And I don't see anything more in the chat. There isn't anybody that's raising their hands. So if you want to take off your Steve viewing screen, we can just make you the speaker.
So, bottom line, no one's happy about this. No one's wanted this. We want to get back to curling. We just want to be safe when we do it. The club right now, overarching, we're in a good place. So I'm not worried about the short term, midterm. I know we'll get through it. And I know with the culture of our club, everybody will get behind it. So I want to thank you for attending the meeting. First time we've held it this way. We will be, we've moved board meetings to every other week, every other Tuesday. So those are open to any member to attend. We're doing them through Zoom. We will get that out on our website so that you know what the calendar is and what are the dates. That way, if you wanna just pop in, more than welcome to. But thank you for everything that everybody did, everybody does, and everybody will continue to do.
Yeah, before we leave, let's see, Jim had something, so I'm going to go to him. Oh, hey, there's lots of happy people out there. I'm scrolling through to Jim. Let's see. I don't see him.
I've got him. I'll unmute
All right.
him.
Yeah.
All right, Jim, you're on.
Hey, thanks. I apologize if you covered this. Obviously, I got a lot going on here at the house, so I can't do all that well. But just to be clear, in doomsday scenario, if we don't take in a single dollar of revenue or any members' dues for next year, are we financially sound enough to weather that storm, or will it require a lot of will, as you put it?
Candidly speaking, off the top of my head, we can weather that storm.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. It's like the baby bird out of the nest. There's that bell curve, the inverted bell curve. We might get close to the ground, but I think we would have more than the reserves to weather that worst case doomsday.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
And good to see everybody.
Yeah. Who else?
And then there was just one question about just definitively saying, and this is a great way to end the meeting, is there going to be curling? Is there going to be curling next year?
Our full intent is to have curling next year. What it's going to look like, I'm not sure, but our full intent is to have curling and be able to get back to the sport we love. So.
There was somebody else that had a hand raised too,
Yep.
and I'm trying to find them. Someone put it in the chat because it went away.
I'm looking through it. I don't.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't. All right.
Rob just
Unless
said,
there's something else
yeah,
going once,
yeah.
going
And
twice.
I moved to, yeah. I moved to adjourn and I think Amanda seconded it.
Awesome. Thank you very much, everybody. Good curling.
All right.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.